What you are going to start enjoying is the work of students creating a very precise and realistic documentation of each of the assigned sacred places. I cannot be more proud. I don't know if I feel sad for feeling old or not, but they were my students long time ago in the VR studio. And in these particular projects that you are about to see, we also implemented all this technology for visualization, for interactivity, and actually to display all the construction documents and the scanning process. So Mason, Sam, Mitchell, and Andrew.
All right, so I'm going to get us started off here with just some general background information and a brief history. So in 1844, Richard and Mally Lloyd Jones left rural Wales to come to America for religious freedom and opportunity. After living here for some time, they decided to build a small house of worship, which would later be known as Unity Chapel. The church constructed in a shingle-style cottage church aesthetic, and it was completed in 1886. It combined the talents of a famed Chicago architect, Joseph Lyman Silsby, and a young Frank Lloyd Wright, who looked after the building's interior. The chapel became a worship center, but also served the community as a meeting house, gathering area, and school. Around the building stretches a graveyard for the Lloyd Jones family. As Matt said, this building is down the street. If you have not made it out, I highly recommend that you do. It is a beautiful building, and one of the first things that will be there to greet you is Frank Lloyd Wright's grave. Now, some of you may know the story, but when Frank Lloyd Wright died, he was buried here with his family at Unity Chapel. However, when his wife later passed on, she, in her will, had stated that Frank to be removed and brought to Taliesin West in Arizona and be cremated with her. So while he is no longer buried at Unity Chapel, his grave is still here for you to admire and enjoy. Some other information, in 1974, Unity Chapel was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And then also some more general information about our project itself. The main bulk of our project that you will see was creating HABS drawings. For those of you who don't know what HABS drawings are, they are drawings documenting historic landmarks and buildings. HABS drawings are used to help keep a record of historic buildings and also prevent them from being torn down in the future. Now, one thing that was expressed to us early on was that HABS drawings are beautifully crafted and well made. There's various different line weights and different ways we had to set up our drawings that you will see. And one interesting twist that we decided to add was to add a font that Frank Lloyd Wright designed himself for his Eagle Rock project in the 1920s.
So when we first started off, of course, we were using the point clouds that we were provided, but we were told that some of the grave sites were not in the point clouds, which it ended up being like 90 grave sites were not in the actual point cloud itself. So I actually came out, I only live about an hour away. One weekend I stopped by, I took a photo of every single grave site on the property, laid it out, as well as listing out all the names and their corresponding graves. It turns out the original HABS drawings that were done, a couple of the graves were mislabeled. There was also some new graves added in. So I went to document that. Turns out I took 110 photos and there's 108 graves, so I had to figure out where those extra 2 went, as well as cross-referencing them with some, there was a website online. A bunch of the graves did not have names or were hard to see, so I was cross-referencing both the old HABS drawings, the photos I took, as well as that website. And then we have a little site model over on the right over there. That 3D print was created in about 2 days from when we first got the point cloud and trying to learn Revit. Most of us did not use Revit before this class. So it was modeled and printed in 2 days. And then the whole site plan and the topography was made from cross-referencing USGS maps, and then as well as Google Earth and plotting out points to get the topography.
All right, so getting into the drawings, it all kind of started out with the point cloud, like Mitch said. That's how our drawings are so accurate, is because we use that 3D scan of the building, brought that into Revit, and then modeled everything in Revit. So that's how all the drawings and modeling kind of started. So every imperfection, every non-90 degree angle, it's all just following the point cloud. So it's very precise. So getting into the plan, it's a very simple plan. Vestibule after the front porch, and then there's kind of one main space, which is like the worship space. It's divided into two areas, but there's a large wall opening, so they're pretty much the same space. It can be used for separate things, but also services throughout the whole space. There's a lot of large windows on almost every wall in there, so there's a lot of natural light that's let in that kind of illuminates all of the fantastic details in the interior. You can kind of see in the ceiling plan, it's very intricate woodwork all over the ceiling, and then you'll see in the sections there's wainscoting along all the walls, so it's very detailed and very beautiful on the inside. So getting into the elevations then, it's a very simple building, which makes it beautiful. Like Mason said, it's a shingle style, Richardsonian, Romanesque architectural style. So that kind of features a stone base with minimal ornamentation and the rustic aesthetic. So go ahead. It's a very simple yet beautiful building. You can see that on these other elevations. The front gate we detailed, it's a very prominent feature. It's kind of the first thing you see as you approach the site. You walk through that gate. It's a very beautiful, intricate details. And then we show a wall section that kind of shows how the stone meets the wall with the wainscoting in the interior as well.
So hopping into the sections here, once we had completed our Revit model, we had to make a couple sections. We wanted to maximize the amount of information we could. So the top section there cuts through the auditorium and the parlor and shows you the south wall. The one right below it cuts through the auditorium and the front porch, and it shows you the stage where somebody would be preaching. As you can see in the sections, all of those faint light gray lines, those are all hand-drawn in Revit using detail lines. And we did that in order to really emphasize the detail, especially in the wainscoting, as Sam pointed out earlier, and the detail in the ceiling. So in Revit, once you cut a section, it gives you a nice drawing already, but we have to edit all the line weights in accordance with HAB standards. And so that was the time-consuming part in that, not necessarily making the drawing itself. Moving on to the details, we wanted to detail the belfry because it's so prominent, you can't miss it. It's the most iconic part of the building. So we cut a section through that and really wanted to show how that goes together. Moving to the right, you have a section detail of a window, a typical window, so we can see the muttons and how far apart they're spaced and whatnot. And then finally at the bottom there, we decided to detail the bell for its importance in the building. So this is our axon. This is from the southeast corner. This is the most prominent corner of the building. If you look up Unity Chapel online, hit images, the pictures are going to be, 90% of them are going to be from this angle. This is what we refer to as the money shot, and this is really where you get the most information about the building from a single view. And this is our last drawing and the most important one. This really shows our entire process. So starting on the left, those are the point clouds. So that's just raw data points put in Revit. Then what we do is we model the building following that point cloud fully, and then that's the drawings in the middle there where it's the point cloud overlaid on top of the line work. And then finally, we just hide the point cloud, and we're left with these beautiful drawings. Okay, and then finally, our physical model, it's, as stated, a relatively simple building, so we really wanted to emphasize the texture and the overall characteristics of the building. You can see in a few minutes, we'll invite everybody up here. It's right there. We put a light inside, so it kind of illuminates it, kind of gives it a little bit of a better feeling and everything.
All right, so this is the part where you guys can join on in. If you have a cell phone with a camera, you can scan this code. This will bring you into our virtual point cloud where we have panoramas, so you can experience the point cloud for yourself. There should be a welcome screen with some credentials and just information about what you're getting into. You can just hit log in here, and then you'll be able to scroll around the screen, look around, and there should be arrows so you can navigate through the site. So this is kind of that first screen you should see if you were here. You can go ahead and click that arrow.
If you cannot see this screen, try moving around. Your phone might automatically put you on AR mode. So if you do not see the screen, just do a 180 with your phone.
All right, so this is the point cloud. So this was our reference for Unity Chapel. We went and visited the site yesterday actually, but throughout the past month and a half, 2 months, this is what we were working from. So that first view Mitch was just at was the front gate. As Sam and Andrew were saying, this is like your first experience when entering the building. Around that area is where the historical marker is located, right by the gate. And then on this rock here is some of that brief history I noted for you guys. So if you do decide to take a visit, you can look over at that rock. This here is like the front steps, kind of as you're entering the space. You get a view of the gate and some of the surrounding graves over to the left, if you can see that a little bit. So this is the interior. This is that wall that Sam was talking briefly about. There is a division of the space, but it is fairly open and usually used for this open space. There is a rod here that has little rings that we presume there used to be a curtain there, so you could divide the space up. But right now you're sitting in the parlor auditorium area, and this stage here is where someone would give a sermon or a religious study. This is the other side. One thing in the point cloud that kind of made it harder to deal with the wainscoting and some things was all of the chairs. There are so many chairs in here, and it kind of got frustrating to see like what we were looking at. Also, the quality isn't perfect, but we were able to make do, and overall it was a pretty good scan. Now this, again, is that money shot. It's just the most beautiful angle. You get the most information. You can see both the graves, the gate, and the building. And yeah. So of this was kind of a fly-through. So just experience the building as a whole, not so much what you would see eye level. As Matt was talking about, a lot of trees on this site. All the bricks and the shakes we had to individually model. So especially on the south and west sides, it was extremely hard to get that detail when you had a bunch of leaves and trees in the way. So that was a challenge. We kind of had to move the point cloud around to get a better angle. But yeah, you get a real sense of the building with this panorama. We went slow, so hopefully no one gets motion sick. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so over here you can start to see some of the graves. We didn't have access to all of the graves in the point cloud, so it was very crucial that Mitch did come out here and do the work that he did. That was greatly appreciated by the rest of us. And now we're coming back around to swing to that opening front entrance area. This front side right here is where the road is, so if you go and drive there, you can park your car here and walk over to the site. And now we're going to come back down to that more eye-level perspective through that front gate, really welcome you into the site. In our perspective, these people kind of acted as like perspective, and it was really interesting, so we thought it would be really cool to fly through them into the building. And now, as we come back into here, we're back into that center space. Again, here's that parlor auditorium area, all of the chairs in their glory. You get a real sense of the detailing on that ceiling. We spent a good while modeling that in our renderings, which you'll see shortly. And now something we didn't talk about as much is this small kitchen area. So where they would prepare meals. It's really small and I guess just used for what they would need it for. There's not as much of a focus on this space, but it is there nonetheless.
Okay, so now on to the renderings. We took our models straight out of Revit and we imported them into Twinmotion. And this is messing around with a lot of Twinmotion assets to create this rendering. All the graves are pretty much laid out in their respective spots. The wains, eventually the wainscoting, but all the cedar shakes, both hand drawing them, modeling them to come into Twinmotion, as well as painstakingly cutting them all for our physical model. I think we're all happy to never see cedar shakes again. So for these renders, with how many details that are in them, each photo takes 3 hours to render outside of Twinmotion. So this is our money shot. This is right in front of the gate, so we didn't block any of the view. Again, we went with a nice fall theme, so you can go and actually visit and compare. It's only 2 minutes away, just less than a mile. If you type it into Apple Maps, type in Unity Cemetery, and not Unity Chapel, otherwise it'll take you 2 miles the wrong way. So this is a rendering of the interior with all those scattered chairs, and we really wanted to show all that wainscoting again across the entire building. And we actually did another tour of just the renderings. So these are 360 panorama renderings, again, right out of Twinmotion. Each one of these renderings ended up taking 12 hours to export. So it was a lot of trial and error. The shadows wouldn't show up correctly. Had to re-render it. But I'll walk you through this tour again. Yep.
Did you say this is generated from your Revit model?
Yep. Yeah, so the building is generated from Revit. The trees and the grasses are all done through Twinmotion.
What was the rendering engine?
Twinmotion. So Twinmotion runs off of Epic Games and Unreal Engine. It's sort of the architecture equivalent. They make it a little bit more user-friendly than Unreal Engine, but still quality assets. Again, if you don't see the screen, just do a 180. The AR mode might be on. So as you can see, since these were panoramas, we had to model out the bluffs around the building to give a sense of space. As well as you can click on these information dots to see the full renderings a little closer. As well, we'll pull them up later when we have all of you guys walking around. The info card, that's actually on the rock right outside of the Unity Chapel. You can click on any of those little info cards to see better details. When we move over to our money shot, if you pan to your left, you can actually look at Frank Lloyd Wright's grave, in case you can't actually visit. This was one of the many photos that I took. Moving on inside, again, these panoramas are taken from the same locations as our renders, so you can kind of get a sense, as well as you can see our drawings through this 3D tour. Yeah.
Did you take pictures of the actual surfaces inside the building and use that for your rendering, or did you just find a material file or whatever it's called?
Yeah, that was finding the material files, but when they come in, they're very basic. So you have to adjust the lighting and the reflectivityness of all the materials as well as the tints on them. So it takes a couple hours of, this is too dark, this is too light. What if I put this shadow down on it? Does that affect the color? So you have to go through and mess with each and every texture. So if you have this app, it's called Augment. Andrew will take over from here, but this is a 3D experience of our actual Revit model itself.
Yeah, so I'll give everyone a couple minutes to download this if you want. If you do end up downloading this, we'll have another QR code for you that you scan, and you'll be able to place our model, like the one over there, on the floor in this building, and you can move around it and see really high detail version of it in your phone. You can scale it up, scale it down, and this will give you a really good look of the building. So it's an option. I'll leave it. It's called Augment, 3D augmented reality. It's got a red cube as the logo. Yeah, it's free. And all you have to do is install it, and then you'll scan the QR code that we'll switch to in a second, and that will automatically put you in AR.
We will also have our phones. We have the app already, so if you can't get it right now, when everyone comes up, we will have them ready. And if you don't download the app and still scan the QR code, you can look at our model, but you can't put it in real life. But like I said, we'll have these ready for you. So working with Gabby, this was one of each group had a mentor, in a sense, working with them. So we were working with Gabby, who has an expertise in virtual reality, augmented reality, more of the digital stuff. So we had more of an emphasis on our digital projects. You'll see other perspectives from other groups, which should give you a wide range of how we can represent our ideas.
So with that, we want to thank you for listening to our presentation. We are open to any questions, and we invite everybody to come up and look at our work we've done so far. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucille Sells. I'm an adjunct professor at the School of Architecture and Urban Planning, and also have a vested interest personally in this project. I kind of roped Matt into this project. This is up in my hometown area, and I was challenged when I was a grad student by one of my family friends to use my skill set to do something good for my hometown. And I ignored that for over a decade until finally this year I was spending some time up north, and I talked to Matt and I said, what if you included something from northern Wisconsin in the work you're doing? So the role I have really in all of this is introducing Mary and Matt to one another. So this summer, I actually got Matt to drive all the way 6 hours up to northern Wisconsin. And in that time, I had joined Mary and some of her cohorts from the Washburn Heritage Association and asked, what are you guys working on and what could you use some advocacy on? And it was this project, the Bayfield Fish Hatchery, Pike Building. And so my role here was really just as a networker. And so I would love then to introduce Mary Gruhl, who is the, what's your role with the Friends?
Chair.
Chair of the Friends group, leading the fundraising effort. And I think what's really unique about this project, not to say that they're not all special, is that this has many active stakeholders, and they're actively trying to fundraise to actually do work on this building. And so my hope, selfishly, maybe altruistically, is that the involvement of this project with all of you in future work is that we can actually see something from what the students have done here happen in the future. So with no further ado, Mary, please take it away.
Thank you, Lucille, and I'm going to take about 10 minutes before the students take over just to share with you a little bit about the fish hatchery, how it ended up there, and what we have discovered as a very, very new group, a friends group as of February of 24 is when we became official and what we've done so far, and how much these students have already helped us in going forward. So first of all, this is not a church and it is not a synagogue, for sure. But why this facility we consider very sacred is that it provides food for the future. By that we mean that every year for the past 127 years, they have stocked inland lakes and Lake Superior and Lake Michigan with 500,000 fish. Food for the future. Because of them, we, commercial fishermen, sports fishermen, Friday night fish fry people, and Native Americans are benefiting for what is happening up in that facility. And what we just picked up recently, because right now is spawning season. They are going out, picking up the eggs to raise them in the fish hatchery to become food for us in the future. And for Native Americans, their tradition and ceremonies often take place during fish spawning season. That's happening right now. These traditions include praying over the fish, praising the river gods, and giving thanks for the fish's life. So that is sacred in many, many respects. So, as she said, my name is Mary Gruhl. I'm chairperson. I have two members from the board here, my husband Ed Gruhl, who's the treasurer, and Susan Rosh back there, who's our secretary and also historian. And this is collaboration between the Department of Natural Resources. This puts in a different twist to saving a historical building. It is on DNR property. So we are working very closely with them. Our liaison is Darren Miller, who is a fish management person, but a historian by passion. So he is the one who wanted to see this happen. And of course, the Friends of the R.D. Pike Building, which I am a part of. So I'm going to just touch very quickly on the past, where we are today. History reawakens. This is our new mantra. I'll show you why in a moment. And we want to eventually have it become a premier educational center. So, food for the future. First of all, how many of you know where Bayfield is? All right. So it is way up there, and if you expand it on the right-hand side, I'm showing you where Chequamegon Bay is. Chequamegon Bay is a prime breeding area for fish because of the Apostle Islands and all the shore areas. Fish need that kind of environment to propagate. So how in the heck did, let me go back here. How in the heck did that building end up there? There we go. In the 1800s, logging became a big deal up there. In addition to that, brownstone was discovered as being one of the best building materials around. No longer, but at that time it was. And in 1883, the first train to reach Bayfield occurred. So with that said, for the first time, wood and stone could end up anywhere in the United States. And a lot of it went to Chicago for building after the big fire. However, at the same time, sanitation was very primitive in that area. So the logging went to Chequamegon Bay in the lumber yards, and the brownstone was all along the shorelines. So Chequamegon Bay became incredibly polluted, covering all of the breeding places for fish. The fish population was dropping precipitously. At that time, a Mr. Nevin, who was the head of the Nevin Fish Hatchery, that is now in Madison, was very concerned because food for the future was disappearing. and he couldn't get food all the way up there or fish up there. So they started looking all over for a place to build a fish hatchery that would be huge and provide food. So in looking around, they came up with an area in Bayfield next to Pikes Creek that was close to Lake Superior, that had lots of springs on the property, that had 1/4 mile along the shore, and it was pristine, and they were excited. So they reached out to a Mr. Pike who owned that property, and graciously, he and his wife, Mr. Pike and Eva Pike, donated to the state over 500 acres of property for $1, with the caveat that it would always remain a propagation for fish area. If it were to stop, the property would go back to the Pike family. Mr. Pike, you see his home right here, is what he was on that property and had a bit of a fish hatchery himself, so he understood what was needed. He had already begun to build the waterways from the springs to the fish hatchery to raise the fish, and that is Mr. Pike. Whoops. When the property was sold, then they hired Mr. Padley as architect. The builder was going to be Mr. Van Ness and Paulson, and the stonework was Archie McDonald, and the lower part of the building is in brownstone. If you see here, the total cost was $9,000, but at the time that the contract was signed, the caveat was that it would be done in 3 months, and they did it. How amazing that they built this huge building in 3 months. So the front of the building was for the resident, for the superintendent, and the back side over here, whoops, I'm stepping on something, going from here to the other side are the raceways, or where the eggs and the fish are raised. So Mr. Padley, who designed it, was very comprehensive. He thought, I'm going to combine the home with the fish hatchery. And subsequent to the building being constructed, they started building huge ponds, which exist today, which are still being used to raise the larger fish. And you can see at that time the land is denuded because of logging. So for those of you who don't know anything about fish hatcheries, the first thing that they do, and this is happening right now, they go out in the lakes, they catch a female, they squeeze the eggs out of her, that's caviar, and then they find a male, they milk him, that's milt, that's a sperm, they mix it together, bring it back to the hatchery. The eggs develop into what's called a sac fry, a fingerling, and 18 months later, this is the point at which the fish are released into the streams and into Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, and to an adult, etc. So think about this. For you young people who are here, if you catch a fish, an adult fish, that's 40 pounds, that means it's taken that long. It's taken about 40 years to get to that point from here. So however old you are today, the ones that are being put in the hatchery, right, would be 40 years later. So pretty amazing how long. So food for the future, this is for 40 years later, if you catch a big one. In addition to that, with the train having just arrived, Mr. Nevin had 2 cars built, the Badger cars. One of them has been totally restored, specifically to handle fish. So the fish would be put in boxes. I brought one that's an 1897 box there. They would put about 10,000 fish per layer, ice on top, and they would send the boxes 2 places, or the boxes would come to the fish hatchery about 4 times a year. So the Badger train was specifically for fish. In '81, it was listed as a National Historic Registry, in '89 as a State Historic Registry, and in 2011, it was named the R.D. Pike Building after Mr. Pike. So History Reawakens, as a new group of friends, we have been extremely excited to have found the following. But first of all, we set up our website, a Facebook, Gmail. We have a post office box. We found photographs of the original gardens. We have a landscape person who has totally restored the gardens. They've been absolutely gorgeous this summer. People are stopping by. We had an arborist come and trim the 127-year-old pine trees, so the building is very visible. We invited Mr. Drake Pike, great-grandson of R.D. Pike, to come to our first opening, and he spoke to the people about how his great-grandfather gave this property to the state specifically for the fish hatchery. Very exciting to have that. Then we had someone who donated sandstone or brownstone that it was from the same quarry that the building was built, and this gentleman who works at Pike at the fish hatchery cut the stone to match the house, and we had a plaque made of R.D. Pike that is now there for people to stop and see. The exciting part about History Reawakens, hidden behind, and when these young people are coming up, I've invited them to come up, there was a cabinet that didn't appear to be a cabinet, and Darren started prying around, opened it, and found these diaries. They ranged from 1897 to 1951, where everything every employee did every day is written in there. How fortunate when we go to actually restore completely, we have information. In addition to that, up in the amazing attic, Susan and I found in a closet about 10 boxes of handwritten letters from 1897 to 1951 of everything that was happening on the property. So we have receipts, we have fishing requests. So we are reawakening history in addition to restoring it. We decided to have an inspection report done. Being an old building, we discovered we have lead, asbestos, mold, and guano. The bats found a home in the attic for many years, so that all has to be removed. We got quotes for abatement. That made us realize how much work the Friends Group has to do to raise funds to make that happen. We set up a very tentative chart of what we thought we needed to do, and this will be changed. I'm learning from all of you that this is not going to work. We need the Friends Group to maybe hire somebody to help us with the actual phases. So we're pretty excited about that. We had maps generated that show exactly where the fish go. Most people didn't know that way down in Green Lake, which is in southern Wisconsin, the fish came from the hatchery up in Bayfield. So people are now saying, wow, this is a pretty important place. It's really worth saving. And the same thing in here. So the next big thing that happened is Lucille comes, and these three wonderful people, Felipe, Emily, and Tan, oh my goodness gracious, they were great. And they scanned the entire building. I stayed with them the whole day. I was exhausted just watching them. And out of it came what these young people are doing now. So for you, just a really quick tour of the building. There it is today. It looks pristine. Folks, it is falling apart. The roof is in trouble. The windows are in trouble. The bats have found all the little holes. We are really working hard to restore this absolutely gorgeous icon. So the first floor has 2 rooms. The top one is what had been turned into a kitchen. The bottom one is a living room. The staircase that goes up to 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. The 3rd floor was also used as a living space, and this absolutely amazing attic. that they showed me, and you will see it today, this attic without all the stuff in it is spectacular, and we want to turn that into quite an amazing place in the future. And what they've done for us that we're very excited about, this was in the front of the building. It's the state seal. It's about 13 feet long by 4 feet high. The TAN, I don't know if you're here, scanned it for us. They made us some little models. We are negotiating with the school to make a reproduction for us to use outside. Very, very exciting. So future-wise, we want to do history programs, research, transcribing, archiving, tours, and a continued relationship with these young people that have done such an amazing job. And I look forward to seeing all the details. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. It's a real pleasure to have you here. The work that we've done on this project has been our life for about the past month and a half, but she has dedicated much, much more time than us ever could. So right now, before we start, I think it's best if we introduce ourselves. So I'm Michael Burrows. I come from Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm in my 4th year of the School of Architecture and Urban Planning program here at UW-M. And these 3 are my partners who I've been working close with for the past month and a half.
My name is Ethan Wagner. I'm also a 4th year student in the architecture program at UW-M.
I'm Elizabeth Hansen. I'm a 4th year at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee as well.
I'm Katie Tyree. I'm a 5th year student in the BARC program here.
So as Mary pointed out, it's a very, very interesting building with a pretty unique program. And we have been picking this apart through the point cloud information that we've received from the lovely scans that our fellow students have done. I will be kind of giving an overview of the building, and my partners will later be talking about the documentation process, very engaging structural system in the attic, and give you a video tour walkthrough of the building. So while it may have not smelled the greatest, the superintendent and their family did live in the same building as all the fish were hatching. And this building kind of does reflect that condition. You can kind of see how the living quarters just kind of collides with the hatchery portion of the building here. In a section, you can kind of see this even further. You can see on the left there's the living quarters. On the right, there's the hatchery building. So the long section further illustrates how these 2 sections are kind of independent, codependent on each other in terms of the circulation in the building. You can see there's just this long winding staircase in the hatchery or raceway room that leads up to the 2nd floor attic. And then finally in the 2nd floor attic, there is a staircase that leads up to the 3rd floor. So very interesting way to traverse this building. Going to the 1st floor, here you can see that division once more. Mary had a lot of lovely pictures in her presentation, but I know those architects out here in the crowd would love to see some plans like this. You can see on the bottom living quarters and the hatchery on the top, the raceways. The living quarters on the bottom, on the 1st floor, it had both the parlor and the kitchen in it. And in the parlor, there's this lovely detail, this fireplace that also repeats itself in the kitchen, but kind of in a half-finished form. Going to the 2nd floor, you go up this stairway through the foyer, and it has a very lovely railing, very decorative. Makes you just kind of want to run your hand along it as you go up it. 2nd floor, you can see there's some bedrooms. There's only 1 bathroom here on the 2nd floor, and none of the ways in are quite desirable. You have to walk through someone else's bedroom to get there. There's this bay window towards down the bottom that we were looking at it for a long time, and it was kind of a mystery to us. But it turns out the front part is not actually a window, it is a door, which led to a deck, which is no longer there. which is kind of an interesting thing to remind us that as we're going out and documenting and scanning these buildings, we're only capturing the building in the state it is when we're there. And it doesn't necessarily tell the whole story of the building. So once again, it's very appreciated that Mary was able to give a very detailed history of the building, because today we've seen lots and lots of visions of the future and all the technology that has been presented, but it's very nice to take a look back at the history and help learn from that as well. Finally, moving up to the third floor, you can see that the attic doesn't actually continue up into the third level. It's just kind of a large open space occupied by a lot of the structural system that my partner will be speaking about. There are a lot of dormer windows and one large clear story window where the roofs kind of converge, which actually illuminates the attic very well during the day, very surprisingly so. The bedrooms are kind of interesting because you can see that bottom bedroom is only access to that very large bedroom on the right. So a little strange to kind of leave that in the middle of the night if you have to go to the bathroom, especially considering you have to walk through someone else's bathroom or bedroom to get to the bathroom on the second floor. As Mary mentioned, this is not a church or a synagogue, but it is no doubt still a sacred place here in Wisconsin. And if her lovely detailing of the history didn't convince you, I believe the attic space will, as it has some sort of a divine quality to it with the lighting and the massive structural system within it. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Elizabeth, who will be talking about that.
Yeah, so as Mary and Michael alluded to, something that's really special about this building is the trusses. So that would be a king post truss system. There's actually two intersecting ones. So there's one that runs along the north-south line. So you can see it goes from the second floor attic space all the way to the top of that north-south roof. And then there is a second smaller one that intersects with it down the middle in the east-west direction. So these are wood beams that make up the king post truss system. And yeah, so we'll go over a little bit more later. The 2D drawings, you can see they do show up pretty interestingly here in section, but it's really something else when you see it in 3D. So we'll go over that a little bit later. But yeah, it's just a really special truss system. Something I wanted to touch on too is related to that is that the documentation aspect of this project was quite a challenge. So as the first group had mentioned, not many of us were very experienced with Revit before tackling this project, but we were given a point cloud to start with, and one of the main difficulties with the point cloud, the scanning team that provided us with the point cloud did an amazing job, but there are limitations to point cloud scans, and one of those limitations is the conditions under which the attic is made it very difficult to get an accurate scan, just consistent all the way through. So one of our main difficulties was trying to get some of those scans. And so you can see this would be one of our point clouds. And the exterior was a lot more successful, but some of those interior scans made it pretty difficult to understand what was going on. So we worked pretty closely with some of the HPI team. They're very, very great people, very helpful. And we actually had to make up a little bit of a different system where we had to pull up the point cloud separately in a different file format that was more legible, and then navigate that side by side to kind of understand what was going on. So we had the point cloud underlaid underneath all of our drawings, but additionally pulled up to give us some additional context. So that was quite a challenge, but it was very, very rewarding, I think. We'll see some more of that later. Yeah, so then the last thing I want to talk about would be this is a very intense project. There's many spaces to it, and something that was also a challenge was the modeling process, deciding what would be best to model in 3 dimensions. We wanted to have a 3-dimensional file to be able to work with, so you could, if we want to revisit this and pull different sections, we could potentially then just grab a different section and add a few extra line width to it to really make it look nice. But yeah, we had to decide what would be best to model and what would be best to just draw in 2D drawings. So Katie will talk more about the HABS drawings right now, but yeah.
Okay, so to do our project the way we did it, we had to follow the HABS standards and guidelines. So there's this whole booklet online that I kind of read through, but basically HABS standards, I know the other group kind of talked about it a little bit. The HABS standards have a very specific way that you have to produce drawings from, it starts with site measures or scans and ends with what you see on our boards and in our packets and everything. To do the drawings, there are set line weights that we have to follow, and it ranges from 0.1 to 0.6 millimeters, and the purpose of these line weights is to help communicate the depth and textures that are all over historic buildings. So in HAB standards, you are not allowed to use shading or pochés or any shadows of any kind. You have to rely on the line weights and set appropriate line weights to your drawings in order to depict any change of surfaces or of depth.
I think one way that this really shines through is on this second level. There's this really beautiful tile that is in the main hallway and one of the bedrooms, and that tile was very texturized, and so trying to achieve that in just lines was quite the challenge, but I think we were pretty successful in that. But yeah, we've got lots of great drawings, and you'll see some more of that in the panoramas.
So next I'm going to talk about the elevations and the materials that are used on the exterior of the building and how that made the building what it is. So on more than half the building, there are masonry units. Mary kind of mentioned it in her presentation. The primary stone that was used for these masonry units was limestone, and it was from a local quarry. The next material I'm going to talk about is cedar and wood siding. It's not typical siding, so they used cedar shingles for most of the building, or most of the wood that you see on the exterior of the building. And then the beautiful roof that is very unique and really helps form the identity of this building is a gambrel roof with typical asphalt shingles. So with the bricks, they do cover most of the building. The entire rear building, which is the fish hatchery portion of it, is covered in bricks except for the dormers and the upper portion. The bricks, it's kind of funny when we were looking at the point cloud and trying to reproduce the bricks, or not bricks, the masonry units. We noticed that they did follow a pattern for a few rows, and then going up from there, the courses kind of broke into an unusual pattern, if any pattern was still there at all. In the front portion of the building, where the main entrance is, there are 2 columns right where you enter, as well as there are 2 chimneys on the top. It appears to be a stone veneer that was added to, I guess, a more structural portion for just these 2 columns in the center and the chimneys. And then we also noticed that there is a fieldstone foundation that extends up about like probably half a level. It might be difficult for everyone to see, but it's just on these front portions. It does not extend to the back building where the hatchery is. There's also, do we have another? No. Oh. So a lot of the trim, this obviously is not in color, but all of the trim aspects to this building are gorgeous decorative aspects, and they are all this beautiful dark green color that really adds contrast with the yellow paint color of the rest of the wood siding. Can you go back to the other one? Sorry. There's also, with the green trim and decorative elements, the title on the front is a matching green, and there are a whole row of corbelling just on the front, and then that really blends in with the trim, but it is a beautiful detail that we noticed.
So you can see some of that corbel trim in the renderings. So this is just a approach shot. You might notice that there is no path walkway up to the building. That is accurate. It's just kind of in the grass. So there is a path, a road going around the building. But so the approach here, like Katie said, there's the flagstone that is just applied to the surface here and then wraps around here. We've got the trim up there. You can get a more close-up shot here. The State Fish Hatchery in 1897, the lettering there is just painted straight onto the siding, so it's really a beautiful feature. This would be a rendering of the inside, so looking at this stair rail, that was one of the things that we chose to highlight just because it was just really beautiful with the banister going up, and it wraps around. It's a U-shaped stair. So let's see. And then this would be a rendering of the attic space. So you can see there is mostly symmetry here. We'll go over this a little bit more, but there is the symmetry does break here where there's these extra supports added to this side of the truss. So this would be the west side. And then it is supported by these thin metal columns that extend here and here, and then you can see a little bit of that intersection here. And then let's see, there's our QR codes. So similar to the last group, we have some panoramas. If you scan these QR codes, it'll take you to our presentation. I'll give you a few minutes to pull that up, and then I will also pull it up on here for everyone. So we'll start with the point cloud panorama.
Okay, so as we're kind of walking in here, we're kind of entering into the foyer here, and this is kind of where the stairs are, and that kind of leads up to the second floor. So this staircase right here only goes to the second floor, doesn't go to the third floor. That would be in the back staircase in the fish hatchery area. All
right. Yeah, so feel free to take a look at the walkthrough. Just for time constraints, we are going to move on to the second panorama, so I'll pull up that QR code really quick. Let's see. Okay. So then if you scan the second QR code, that will take you to our rendered panoramas. And you can see it in the point cloud as well. You can see the quality of the scan that we worked with for the trusses. But if you go to the rendered panoramas, what Mary was saying is we have a cleaned up version of the attic space, so you can really see those trusses shine. I will pull that up right now. Okay, so this would be our panoramas for the rendered version. And let's see, walking through here. I just want to highlight the trusses. So you can move your camera around. You can put it in augmented reality as well. And you can see this intersection of the trusses here. So it's really quite something. So the trusses that run along the east-west axis are much higher up, much smaller. And then they really meet with the main trusses at this point, and you can see that clear story window through here that illuminates much of this area in addition to these dormer windows. So this would be a view from the lofted area, but yeah.